All right, thanks, Andy. The jury in Steven Spader's murder trial will start deliberating tomorrow after listening to hours of tense closing arguments.
Spader sat still, intently watching his lawyers admit that their client is a liar, and jurors can't believe the writings the prosecution said were his confession. But the prosecution turned all that around and showed pictures of Kimberly Cates and her family. WMUR's Amy Cavino is live tonight outside of the courthouse.
Definitely an unexpected twist this afternoon, that delay in giving jury instructions, and it really seemed to deflate those waiting in the courtroom who were just waiting for that definitive moment when the jury gets the case. And for the first time today, Steven Spader had family in the courtroom. He seemed to suppress a small smile as he gave his parents a nod when he entered the courtroom this morning. Steven Spader gives a slight nod to his parents, seated behind the defense table Monday morning. Then Jonathan Cohen begins his closing argument, an hour-long attempt at discrediting the evidence put forward by the prosecution, starting with Chad Landry, convict turned state's witness, who admitted he encouraged Spader to talk and write about the attack in jail.
He told us Steve Spader craved attention, more so than anybody else Chad Landry saw in jail. He wanted to be popular. He wanted people to listen to him, to pay attention to him. This is easy pickings for Chad Landry.
The defense referred often to the state's burden of proof being a heavy one and painted their key witnesses as liars, a clear effort to plant seeds of doubt about fellow suspects Quinn Glover and Billy Marks.
Quinn Glover had a motive to lie. He wanted to avoid punishment and push the blame onto others. No questions about that.
Does any of that look like a joke? Does this look like a joke to anybody here? It didn't to Kim and Jamie.
The prosecution used slides with excerpts from Spader's alleged jailhouse 15-page journal of sorts to drive home the point that their evidence matched his writings, information only the killer would know.
I found an iPod in the first room and used it as a light source. That iPod was Jamie's missing iPod.
Steven Spader's parents showed no emotion during closings, but a young woman seated with them cried openly. They were swarmed by media outside the courthouse at noon.
We love our son. God loves our son, too.
Attorneys for both sides will meet with Judge Abramson here tomorrow at 8 a.m. to finalize jury instructions. Then at 9 a.m. the jury will be brought in, and given those instructions, that's expected to take about an hour. Then finally the jury will receive this case and begin to deliberate. We are live in Nashua. Amy Cavino, WMUR News 9.
And the jury will be deciding guilt or innocence on 5 charges. The first is the most serious, first-degree murder. Jurors have 2 different charges to choose from. One stating that Spader knowingly caused Kimberly Cates' death during a home burglary, or that he purposely killed her, meaning he went to the Cates' home with the intention to murder. Spader is also charged with the attempted murder of Jamie Cates, conspiracy to commit murder, and conspiracy to commit burglary for the planning of the crimes, along with witness tampering for allegedly threatening to kill another teenager if he told anybody about what happened in Mount Vernon. Now, the maximum sentence for the murder charge would be life in prison without parole. We are now joined by our legal analyst, Mark Stevens. And during this whole case, the defense tried painting all of the witnesses as liars. Today, they came out of the gates calling Spader himself a liar. So, Mark, do you think that the jury will buy this kind of approach?
Well, I think that they showed some examples of where Steven Spader had in fact lied, just like they did a good job of showing that some of the other witnesses, other co-defendants and other witnesses in the case had lied to the police at different stages of the proceedings here. So I think that's part of their central theme here, is that the state's case is based on people who just aren't telling the truth.
So the defense again pointed out that there was no DNA evidence, that there's no way to tell that that machete that we saw in court along with the knife are actually the murder weapons. Do you think that's enough to create doubt?
I think that's part of the doubt that they're trying to create. I don't think that standing by itself, that may not be the machete that was used, is enough. But I think what they're trying to do is just sow a general seed of doubt throughout the state's case, including the testimony of the witnesses and the lack of DNA evidence or blood evidence.
Now, the prosecution certainly started by countering every point from the defense. Then the prosecution kind of built on the emotion of these crimes involving a mother and a young girl. Can emotion override the fact for this verdict?
Sure, it could. I don't know if it would totally override the fact, but coupled with the bad facts that weigh against the defense team in this case, there's certainly human beings, 12 human beings are going to decide the case, and they don't check their emotions at the door. They're told to decide the case based on the evidence that they hear, but any human being listening to this type of evidence would naturally feel a lot of emotion and compassion.
Mark, is there any way to tell how long deliberations could take?
No, they can take as long as they need to reach a verdict, as long as they're still working towards unanimity, towards a unanimous verdict. It could be a few hours, it could be a few days, it could be longer than that, it could be weeks.
Mark Stevens, our legal analyst, thanks for your insight tonight.
Thank you.
And as we wait for a verdict in this case, a reminder that you can find full details of the trial right on our website. Our coverage includes the latest developments, as well as uncut video from some key witnesses and analysis on the strategies being used by both the prosecution and the defense.
It was a